morning, folks. Good afternoon or good evening. Whenever you're watching this, I hope you're having a good day. Now, I have in front of me 4 different kinds of brownies, and I wanted to let you guys know exactly how I felt that they differ and which one is like the best for the price point and the amount of effort that it takes to make them. So from this side, I have some homemade brownies right here. These were out of a box. These are also fresh baked, but you know, it's a little bit easier since you just add a couple of ingredients, mix it together. Next up, I purchased these just at my local grocer's in-store bakery. And these are, of course, brownies in a box. The most convenient, but is the flavor going to degrade when you put something inside of a package like that? I don't know, we're gonna see how it all comes. So first up, I wanna try the ones that are probably the most familiar for most folks. These are Betty Crocker fudge brownies that just came out of the box. I specifically underbaked them a little bit because I do like them when they're a little bit gooey in the middle. Pro tip, if you've ever had a lava cake, you know how it's like melty in the middle? Basically all that is underbaked chocolate cake. So that's what you got here. Now one thing that's interesting about this is that I think that's really tall. It's almost more like a chocolate bread than it is brownie. But I'm gonna take a bite of this, let you guys know what I think. It's pretty rich. It's actually a little bit fluffier than I would expect from brownies. Now the Betty Crocker boxed brownies call for a lot of oil and eggs in it. And one thing is when you make brownies, you tend to use oil instead of butter because that makes something that's a little bit more dense and moist. If you used butter instead of oil, then you'd get something that's a little bit lighter, fluffier, more like a cake, less like a brownie. So it isn't quite as dense as I would expect a brownie to be, but it's still got a lot of like chocolate flavor in it. It's a little bit sweet, not super sweet. I think that if I went with the milk chocolate brownies, that probably would have been a little bit sweeter. These are the fudge brownies. Now, since they're fresh baked, this corner pieces, the side pieces, are nice and crispy. It's a good contrast to like the gooier center pieces. See, like this one is just dripping. This is all from the center cut of the brownie pan. So overall, I'm gonna give it like maybe a 7 out of 10. It's pretty good. It's nice and warm straight out of the oven, so of course everything smells delicious. But I don't think that it's got a really unique flavor to it. All right, next up, I am going to try these homemade brownies. I had a little bit of trouble getting them out of the pan, so they don't look great, but they've got a really crisp top. And I made sure that when I looked up recipes, I wanted to get a recipe that called for using oil instead of butter, because like I said, I think oil is more typically the kind of fat component that you'd use when you're making brownies. So this was a pretty standard recipe. Used shortening and melted chocolate chips instead of, you know, cocoa powder, for example. Now I think I probably underbaked it a little bit because it is a little bit too gooey, but I'm gonna take a bite and see how it tastes. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness, that recipe that I used was super rich. Really hits you in the face with a lot of chocolate. Very dense, very moist. Exactly what you want when you get a brownie. Unlike the boxed mix, it is not bready at all. It's super dense. It's not like eating a cake. Oh my gosh, that is so delicious, guys. I mean, it's creamy, melts in your mouth. Really, really good. If you want the recipe, just put it in your internet search engine. I'm not gonna explain it in the video. It's not a very like outlandish recipe. It's not a very special recipe. I'm sure you can find 100 variations on 100 different sites and it would turn out just this delicious. So if you are comfortable with, you know, cracking eggs and mixing flour, definitely go out of your way to make homemade brownies because they are so much better. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna give that like a 9 out of 10. That is so delicious, guys. Very, very good. All right, next up, Little Debbie's Brownies. I think I've had these before on a previous video. We're gonna see just how it stands up, like side to side with some of these fresh baked options. Now each one is individually wrapped. Oh my god, these things are so dense. It's like hardtack. All right, one thing about this, you don't get that like crisp edge that you get with the fresh baked brownies. So I know that's one thing that a lot of people like. Instead, it's just kind of all the same really dense, really thick consistency. I don't remember what I rated these before when I was trying all the different Little Debbie's treats, but side by side with these brownies, these are just garbage. Like they're not even worth the calories. I mean, very little flavor, kind of indistinct sweetness, not a whole lot of chocolate flavor in there. They're fairly moist. I actually think that the texture isn't so bad, but the flavor is just, it doesn't hold up at all, guys. I don't know, the prepackaged brownies, side by side with the fresh baked brownies, like a 4 or 5 out of 10. Really not even worth talking about. So last up, I'm gonna try some of these brownies that I got just purchased from my local grocery store. Now I tend to shop at a Crocker, so I picked this up at a Fred Meyer. And these are brown buttered brownies. Looks like it has a kind of a butterscotch or something on top. I don't know what these chunks are, if they're like cookie chunks or something. I don't know, maybe cookies fell on top of these brownies when they're getting made. It looks like we have a couple of center cut pieces and 2 side cut pieces. So it doesn't look like their brownies have those crisp edges on the side either. It's just kind of all a uniform consistency throughout. It's unfortunately a little bit similar to the prepackaged brownies, something that I was not expecting. Now let's take a bite of this and see how the flavor holds up. Now I don't know what this topping is. Maybe it's butterscotch? It doesn't taste like caramel, that's for sure. Might be some kind of like cookie topping or something. I don't know what's going on there with that. It does add a good like extra layer of flavor though. It's not just straight brownie. It's actually really quite a nice flavor. I don't think it's quite as gooey as I would want brownie to be, but it is nice and dense, that same dense texture that you'd expect out of a brownie. Now, when I do make brownies, I go out of my way to underbake them a little bit so they're a little bit gooey in the middle. Of course, you're not going to get that with something that's going to be sitting on a shelf for potentially like a week or something like that before it gets sold. So not bad if you need something in a pinch. It does have a decent amount of chocolate flavor in there. Not super rich, not super sweet, so definitely not over the top. Let's try a little bit of milk. So if you need something in a pinch, it's definitely better than the prepackaged brownies, but I don't think it's as good as either of these fresh baked, even the ones that came out of the box. So I'm gonna give these guys maybe like a 6 or 7 out of 10. These were by far the most expensive though, so when I buy them again, No, probably not. I would go out of my way to pre-plan and at least make the packaged brownies out of a box. Those are pretty good. I think the from scratch was definitely the best. Now my favorite thing about the ones from scratch is that you can swap out ingredients, you can try different variations, you can customize it, make them exactly how you want. But I understand for some people who may not be so confident in their baking abilities, I'd still say go out of the way to get a couple of the ingredients and make them out of the box. Because just fresh brownies, nice and warm right out of the oven, are so delicious. I mean, you just can't go wrong. You just follow a couple of simple instructions and you get something that is real delicious. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed that video, and until next time, you guys take it easy. I'm going to enjoy myself some brownies. Well, I guess since I paid so much, I shouldn't let these things go to waste.